Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky informed in his evening video address that he held a Supreme Commander-in-Chief's staff meeting yesterday. It lasted almost 3 hours. The topics ranged from military concerns, veteran issues, brigade matters, fortifications to weapon production. Quote, "We are working to implement all our arrangements with partners regarding new weapon production, joint production facilities and a shared repair base. The goal is to maximize Ukraine's strength, with each month adding power to our defense," unquote. The president also commended Ukraine's air defense. In just one night, they destroyed 30 Shahed drones. Overall, 104 Shahed drones out of 112 used by Russia have been destroyed this week. This week, Russia also launched missiles, including ballistic ones. Systems like Patriot, NASAMS, Gepard, and others provided by Ukraine's partners showed excellent work. The Air Force of Ukraine informed this morning that overnight they downed all 20 Shahed drones and one missile launched by Russia. In general, Russia has increased the number of attacks against Ukraine this week, with numerous alerts happening almost every day. Ukrainian Human Rights Commissioner Dmytro Lubinets informed that Kyiv managed to return 3 more children from the temporarily occupied parts of Kherson Oblast and from Russia, reports Kyiv Post. A boy born in 2008 and a girl born in 2011 were taken out of the temporarily occupied territory of Kherson Oblast, and they are already with their mother. The third boy, born in 2011, is also with his mother, who picked him up in Georgia. The boy wanted to come back to Ukraine from Russia to his mother after his father took him out without permission. Foreign media continued to actively discuss Ukraine's perspectives for 2024, and these discussions are picked up by the Ukrainian media. For example, the German newspaper Welt has published an article saying that the counteroffensive planned by Ukraine for 2024 will be the one planned by Valery Zaluzhny, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, for this summer, reports Ukrainska Pravda. German security expert and political consultant Nico Lange believes that even though the Ukrainian counteroffensive has clearly reached a stalemate and the West is hesitant to support it, there are signs that Kyiv is preparing a plan. After the failure of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, pessimism has spread in society. Lange argues that many people forget that most of the tanks and armored combat vehicles are still there and that many of the promised weapons are still being delivered. This applies, for example, to 200 German Leopard 1 tanks, of which only about 30 have arrived in Ukraine. Moreover, Ukraine still has access to more than 95% of all weapons systems supplied by the West, and they have not yet been used in the counteroffensive. Welt notes that in the south, the Ukrainian Navy is holding and expanding a bridgehead near Kherson on the Russian-occupied left bank of the Dnipro River. From here, it is only 60 kilometers to Crimea. This has been a weak point for the Russian army since Ukraine forced the Black Sea Fleet to withdraw from there and destroyed important air defense systems and other Russian military facilities. According to media reports, Zaluzhny was never in favor of an offensive without air support and agreed to it only for political reasons. But the big counteroffensive that was supposed to lead to Melitopol and Berdyansk was eventually cancelled. The journalists add that Zaluzhny, by deciding to attack with small units, saved the lives of his soldiers, secured weapons systems from the West, and gained important time. Lange believes that Ukraine is probably gathering resources for a new counteroffensive next year. One of the starting points could be a bridgehead in Kherson. We would really appreciate if you could recommend us to your friends and family, as well as share information on social media. This way more people would learn about the podcast and truth about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. At the same time, the New York Times released a story about Ukraine's efforts to gain positions on the left bank of Dnipro River in Kherson region, described the operation as suicide and waste due to the difficult conditions and heavy losses. Soldiers and Marines involved in the Dnipro fording described the offensive as brutal and futile, as groups of Ukrainian troops were defeated on the banks of the river or in the water before they reached the other side. The military said that in most places on the left bank there is nowhere to dig in. The first approach is, as a rule, a marshy islands breached by small rivers or meadows that have turned into a quagmire of mud from bombs filled with water. Several soldiers and marines spoke to journalists expressing concern about heavy losses and, in their opinion, too optimistic reports from officials about the progress of the offensive on the left bank of the Kherson region. CNN, citing multiple US and European officials, informed that they have become concerned over the prospect of a lack of action by the US Congress to fund military aid to Ukraine, fearing that Kyiv might only be able to fight on its own for a few months without it and support from other Western countries, reports European Pravda. CNN says Western intelligence services are now considering how long Ukraine can endure without US and NATO assistance. One senior US military official claimed it could be months, with the worst-case scenario being a significant setback or even defeat by the summer of 2024. Western officials assess that unless additional US aid is provided, Ukraine will first run out of long-range missiles, then air defense missiles, and then artillery ammunition and short-range missiles such as Javelin anti-tank missiles and Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. Congress' failure to act on military aid is starting to impact the battlefield in Ukraine. CNN sources say Ukrainian forces are already rationing ammunition, and Russia has a 5 to 7 times advantage in this respect. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We are a non-commercial initiative of just two people, and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.